All right, so what's going on, guys? It's Off the Record with k.jachimowicz, episode 14. It's been a good little over 2 weeks since I did one of these, but I have a ton of stuff I want to talk about, ton of things I've been getting into, and I really want a big theme of this episode to just be like shattering illusions in media, psychologically, in the world, the whole chess game of life we're all involved in. So I want to start with just the role of social media and media in general in psychological operations. And I don't think probably 90% of the general public, or maybe 99% of the general public, have a true understanding of just how far this all really goes. And so let's start with X, the app owned by Elon, formerly known as Twitter. Cast your mind back to 2015 when Trump begins his public spats with Saudi princes and politicians and celebrities and whatever online publicly. At first glance, it seems like classic bravado, like shit-talking, whatever. But I went back and looked at this recently, and I'm recognizing these patterns. I noticed back in 2015, you have all these same accounts doing these half-baked style memes, bot-like responses, like basically a psy-op kind of thing where they're... And I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not what it is, but I'm saying I almost think that they've been using AI possibly to shape public opinion before we were aware these tools were available in the way they are. And I'm starting to think that these digital psychological operations have been going on a lot longer than people think and have been using artificial intelligence for a lot longer than people may think or even ponder upon. And the CIA's involvement in Psy-Ops is not a secret. MK Ultra demonstrated all that. That's a fact. And I have more I'm going to get to on that in a little bit. And then I've also been recently digging real deep, at least a few weeks ago, I was digging real deep into the Vegas Music Festival situation that happened in 2017. That is such a weird one. And there are so many rabbit holes you can go down on that one. Supposedly the top 3 to 6 floors of Mandalay Bay, where this all originated, or close to it, were reportedly owned or rented for that week by one of the Saudi billionaires. And there's a whole rabbit hole with that where there was protests and an assassination with some other Saudi prince around the same time. And then you have 911 calls going up the strip in a pattern that is showing gunfire moving along the strip, actively. You also had one of the Saudi princes, I'm not even trying to say names, but is escorted out of the Tropicana on video by a SWAT team, just machine guns drawn all through the casino. It's crazy. Then you also had Jim Murren, the CEO of MGM Resorts, selling a massive amount of MGM stock a week or two before the tragedy. And then after the tragedy, he banks on that too by settling all the lawsuits for a fraction of the cost. I don't know how you could possibly think something's not going on there. And then there was also obfuscation of the flight paths of certain helicopters and planes that were mimicking aircrafts that they weren't. So for example, you got helicopter reporting itself as a plane or the opposite until it gets to a certain location, which I think was Maverick Helicopter, which is a prominent Vegas experience that people do. And so then I didn't talk much about this in the last episode because I was feeling crazy about talking out loud about it, but now I don't really care as much. And just my recent experience still at the Trump Hotel with the Cybertruck event opened my eyes to how deep these rabbit holes go. So I like Elon. I'm a fan, or whatever you want to call that, and I think it's really cool what he's attempting to do with technology and the robot stuff. I think it's neat, but I am privy to the realities that we have a billionaire ruling class, like, running crazy, powerful technology kind of against us to a degree that we can't exactly manage, like, at all as human beings. And so, like, for example, like, he did the whole thing on the Joe Rogan where he's lying about his gaming statistics, most likely, and that was practically, like, factually proven. And so I'm looking at that and I'm like, what is going on there? Because immediately after that happened, he's on X talking about how he saved everyone's life because the Cybertruck steel is so strong. And that could just be, pure capitalism. I have no clue. But then there's also the alternative media infiltration. So you got the Sean Ryan podcast guy comes out with a supposed, like, manifesto thing that it just all seems compromised now. Like, all these platforms seem compromised and co-opted to feed us obfuscated information and just send us 8,000 different directions so no one has any idea about what's really going on about anything. And you go back in time, just even a few years, to all these other cases and situations, it's all exactly the same thing. It's like a playbook that's been ran for like 60, 80 years now by these, like, shadow agencies. So to me, that whole thing, manifesto talking about anti-gravity systems, like, seems like a psy-op to me. I literally have no clue what to believe anymore. But for example, I was just recently asking ChatGPT heavily, like, deep questions about that, and you're just immediately getting policy warnings immediately for just asking it about a situation that occurred in physical reality. It's so crazy because I feel like the past 4 or 5 years or whatever, with COVID happening and everything, like, COVID was like a censorship nuke. They, like, dropped COVID and they were like, all you guys are going to put duct tape on your mouths for the rest of your freaking lives. It was weird. So moving on, and I have a lot of stuff I'm going to get to. This might be one of the longest, or if not the longest, the most information and theoretical, ideological packed episode I've ever done. Because I'm trying to shatter these illusions, shatter these barriers, shatter these censorship things. There are so many psychological tactics that are upon us that nobody seems privy to. So anyways, moving forward, the OpenAI whistleblower. This guy, Sushir Balaji, I believe was his name, 26-year-old man, was passed away. We don't exactly know how yet. It's initially classified as suicide, but this happens shortly after he's raising serious allegations and, like, whistleblowing about OpenAI abusing U.S. copyright laws and utilizing copyrighted materials to train its AI models without proper authorization. And so he was also, like, actively expressing apprehension about, like, the societal implications about the power of this technology. And his family, particularly his mother, I'm not going to say her name, just doesn't need to be shared, but she's contesting the official ruling and, like, hardcore believes that there was a struggle in the apartment that has to do with the blood patterns being inconsistent with what they're claiming. They're also claiming that there was, I think, some other stuff, like, they're saying the apartment was ransacked. I mean, it's just, like, all this stuff. So they're hiring private investigators now to do an independent autopsy. The private autopsy contradicts the official ruling. So it's like, who's obviously the authorities or something is lying. I mean, why would this mom be running around making this shit up? Like, and then you're opening up another rabbit hole. It's like, is this all, like, some crazy theater show? Like, you know what I mean? It never ends once you start really opening the doors. So I believe currently that investigation is still open and active, but it's just, like, purely speculative at the moment, and it's very weird. But like I said, there's just this constant trend of, like, someone passes away, like Epstein or whoever, this guy. I'm not saying that they're involved in the same kind of things at all, but I'm just saying, like, And then it's just like totally covered up. The information's completely obfuscated, and then you're just a conspiracy theorist if you say a word about it. And then everyone walks around with duct tape on their faces, scared to talk about anything except like, oh, do you see the weather, Susie? It's like, yo. And you guys want to go farther? Altman supposedly banged his sister for years, and she's running around filing lawsuits about it, bro. The AI app they're trying to make us all use very possibly was created by a dude who committed incest half his freaking life. That's a real possibility. And this isn't like a political smear, this isn't like a political smear necessarily. This is a family member saying, yo, this dude raped me. And people just are like, whatever, man. I got to go ask ChatGPT another question. It's fucking bananas, yo. So, and yeah, I recently watched Wormwood. Interesting show about MK Ultra and the people tested on throughout that operation. My fiance's professor, I'm not going to name him because I'm not trying to get anyone into any shit here, but, well, I mean, he's in the show, so I guess it doesn't matter. But this guy, David Rudofsky, he was one of the lead, I mean, why does it matter? He's already a public figure. Was one of the lead attorneys for Frank Olson's family in their lawsuit against the CIA. So Olson was a scientist, for those who don't know. I'm sure many of you that have listened this far already know everything I'm talking about. But he was a scientist who fell or was pushed, most likely case, to his death after being dosed with LSD. And it's just like a reminder of what happens when the government is allowed to prioritize secrecy over accountability entirely. And the psychology of control, I've already touched on this, but the level of suppression of critical thinking is jarring. And I think I already said this, but it really seems like the psyche of the general public has been completely annihilated to the degree that critical thinking is almost illegal. And like I said, people are just walking around with duct tape. Like, discussing certain topics almost feels illegal, and this is not accidental. It's a tactic to keep you compliant or silent about a certain word, topic, discussion, etc. It's all the way down to the way the algorithms are run and the keywords that the owners of the algorithms are implementing to control your emotions and do positive or negative reinforcement on what you're posting or behaving. So if you're posting yourself, naked or something, and you get 1 million likes, like, they're positively reinforcing your psyche to keep doing that, to go make them a shitload of money and views and etc. But if you start going on there and talking about the CIA is doing this, the CIA is brainwashing you, you're a conspiracy theorist, you get downvoted, you get shadow banned, and then that affects every individual's personal internal psychology of how they feel comfortable speaking and behaving, and it's just a self-fulfilling psy-op eternally, potentially, unless we all snap the fuck out of it like ASAP, which I think AI is playing a role in, but obviously it's become a war now. It's probably already past that. We've probably already lost that as a general public, but like the billionaire class and beyond are just want to control that too. So it's just everywhere we look is just controlled information, as it was in the 60s or whatever. And they're almost using like the alternative look of these new avenues to like trick you. And like, you're like, oh, Joe Rogan? Like, yeah. But it's like, dude, they're probably just implementing the same shit. Just like in rap music. Like, I love rap music. But there's no doubt that like alcohol brands, luxury clothing brands, and etc. subtly implement themselves into these spaces to psychologically influence the public and their decision making and their life behavior. So all I'm saying with that is these stories, patterns, and connections may seem disparate, but they paint a picture of a world where narratives are controlled, dissent is silenced, and reality itself is essentially engineered entirely. Whether it's the events of the Vegas situations I mentioned, the manipulations on X or social media in general, or the hidden histories of products like MK Ultra, it's clear we're not getting the full story on anything. So let's keep going with that. Operation Mockingbird. covert CIA program began in the late 1940s and continued into the 1970s, aimed at influencing media outlets both in the U.S. and abroad. The program sought to use journalists and media organizations to promote certain narratives that aligned with the U.S. government interests, particularly during the Cold War. The operation is thought to have involved funding journalists, influencing editorial decisions, and even planting stories in all the major newspapers. The Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, it was everywhere. And it's still everywhere. And if you think it's not, you're completely out of your mind. There's a real possibility that some of your favorite people online could be like assets. No cap. While the full scope and specifics of the operation remain unclear due to the classified nature of much of the program, reports from the Church Committee hearings in the 1970s revealed its existence and raised concerns about government manipulation of the press. And so you got to think, too, back then people didn't have the technology or ability to communicate and get information and ideology across as fast as they do now. It was totally controlled. So you're talking generations of people, generations of humanity were just fully fed who was in charge decided to feed them. And there was no way at all to push back on it except to whisper to your neighbor or something, and then they wouldn't even believe you, and then you'd be the witch of the town or whatever the hell. So how that applies today. Media influence and narratives. Parallels between Operation Mockingbird and the way social media outlets or regular media outlets are influenced and pressured. And that's very serious. The pressure that these organizations, including social media companies and maybe influencers or social media entities, etc., are pressured by political corporations, government interests. It's a level of pressure you wouldn't believe. It's the mob. It's the mafia. Like, literally. And so, like, there's no way to factually prove, that this is happening today, but it is. Social media and tech giants. So this has completely changed the landscape of information control also. Like, Operation Mockingbird was all about the traditional landscape. Today is all about the focus of manipulating the digital platforms algorithmically and data control, like I said, keywords, censorship by the government and corporate entities to steer public discourse to concentrate the wealth and power and narrative. And it really is, to me, it's just like a obfuscation thing. Like, I find funny too, one of the things with this is, like, I notice a lot of the older generations really trust these like billion and trillion dollar media corporations, like, at a degree that just doesn't make sense on a human level. Like, we have entire generations of humanity now that significantly trust CNN, Fox News, Time Magazine, etc., 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 more than their own kids, more than their own family members, more than their own friends, more than their own neighbors. Nobody believes their own community anymore. Everyone only believes what the billionaires tell them. And I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of ever falling for that ever in my life. I've probably fallen for every psy-op that's ever existed throughout the course of my life. But awareness and knowledge is the most powerful thing on earth that we have. And also, just rambling about that, like, they're using these disinformation campaigns in every way you could possibly imagine and beyond. It's beyond your current capability of understanding, and mine, literally no exaggeration. They're using this to sway the elections, influence foreign policy, shape your opinion on every celebrity. They're using it to create celebrities. There's a whole Ice Spice rabbit hole about how Lucian Grange's son, like, found her, and then people think that they gave her that name because it's like predictive programming from the Spice Girls. Like, dude, this shit goes so... Once you start going into this psychological theorization and stuff, it's incredible where this stuff goes. And I'm not trying to sound like kooky here and go too far. I'm just saying, this stuff... I really believe the public has been purposely psychologically neutered, and that, like, everything is just like unbelievable to people now. Like people have completely abandoned the mental game of life, it feels like. Not everyone, but the majority of the public has forgotten that there's like a psychological game to this existence of ours. So yeah, if you're ever looking at your like Instagram story and wondering like, why did this only get so many likes or X amount of views? Like, it's making me feel weird. It's because this is how they control in modern times what's allowed to be pushed out to the mainstream, what they don't want to be. And it's how they personally inflict you to affect your psyche in every single thing you do and say or purchase or involve yourself in, and etc. Even the term conspiracy theorist itself was created to eliminate dissenting information. Like, the term did not originate to protect you from a lie. It originated to protect the billionaire or ruling class from the truth getting to you, is the very most likely reality of that. And so, all right, now we're going to do a deep dive into Epstein, and we're going to do a couple other little deep dives. I'm telling you guys, I got 24 pages I wrote out. Not all myself, I utilize some tools for help, but like I'm running the ideas myself, and it's just like I'm just gathering information and teaching myself stuff and sharing it with you as well through my own lens. So the Jeffrey Epstein rabbit hole is crazy, tangled web of insanity, involved in finance, intelligence, specifically intelligence, it seems, and blackmailing elite type class. So Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953, started as a math teacher at the elite Dalton School in New York City. He was hired by Bear Stearns in the 1970s, where he quickly rose in the finance world. By the 80s, he was running his own firm, J. Epstein & Co., catering exclusively to billionaires. He claimed to work only with billionaires, yet no major evidence of stock trading exists in his name. So where the fuck did his wealth come from? So he had one backer named Les Wexner. This was his primary financier, who was the founder of L Brands. And I guess they owned, or at least part-owned, Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie & Fitch, Bath & Body Works, and I'm sure more. Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney, allowing him to control vast sums of money and even sell Wexner's properties. Epstein acquired Wexner's Manhattan townhouse, which became the hub for his operations. So there's a very plausible theory there that he was Epstein's laundering money or managing assets for these deeper state actors. And so the island, Epstein's island and trafficking operation. So this was, everyone knows this is Epstein Island. If you do your research, it's Little St. James Island in the Virgin Islands, was Epstein's private retreat. Survivors and people making claims claim it was used for trafficking for the rich and powerful, blackmail operations where guests are secretly recorded in compromising situations, and other things like that. People allege that there were tunnels beneath the island, and satellite images also showed mysterious cement trucks arriving just before his arrest, suggesting he was destroying evidence of some sort. Flight logs and the elite guests. Epstein's private Boeing 727, known as the Lolita Express, if you didn't know, carried a who's who of elites to his island. Notable names and flight logs: Bill Clinton, multiple flights, Prince Andrew, confirmed visits, and he also paid out a settlement, I think, to Virginia Jeffrey, or however you say her last name. Alan Dershowitz, lawyer, denies involvement. Bill Gates met Epstein multiple times, and his ex-wife was also disturbed by these ties publicly. Naomi Campbell, supermodel, linked to the Epstein girls. Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker also traveled on a trip together with the Clintons to this. Most of them claim they didn't know what was happening, while others are deeply implicated. So, like, you mean to tell me none of these people know what the fuck's going on? They're just keeping the public in the dark on fucking everything and using social media and every distraction known to mankind psychologically to refrain you from critically thinking about fucking anything on Earth. They just want you to go, Ice Spice is twerking, we gotta go watch it. That's what they want your whole existence to be. Ice Spice twerking on a fucking phone screen. Literally. So Like, was this dude a spy? He had to have been involved in intelligence agencies. From what I've learned and studied in the past year or so of how these little shadow agencies are operating, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, it's an 100% guarantee that this guy was involved in intelligence ties, likely for the Mossad or whatever. And I don't know a whole lot about that. I'm not going to act like I do. But I definitely think Epstein was involved in intelligence of some sort for somebody. And so, like, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a British media mogul, and he also had ties to intelligence agencies. Epstein's mansion had hidden cameras in every room, so there's got to be a blackmail thing going on there. Many believe he was running like a honey trap op, trying to lure like rich, powerful people into like, how do you say it? Like inappropriate encounters, and then using the footage for like influence or control of some sort. So there's a very real angle that he was not a predator, that he was a spy operating for somebody. And so there's his first arrest. In 2005, he gets arrested for abusing a teen in Palm Beach. The FBI uncovers dozens of victims, yet Epstein receives a sweetheart deal in 2008. 13-month sentence of mostly house arrest, non-prosecution agreement protecting co-conspirators, brokered by Alexander Acosta, who later becomes Trump's Secretary of Labor. Acosta later says he was told to back off because Epstein belonged to intelligence, and that's a quote, those three words. So then Epstein's arrest in 2019 and his passing, which is labeled as a suit or an unaliving, I should say, before I get shadow banned, but which obviously was not the case. So in 2019, he's arrested again on these trafficking charges, held in Metro Correctional Center in New York in special housing due to his, quote, high-profile status, which almost seems like manufactured in a way. It's all so weird. And then August 10th, 2019, Epstein is found dead in his cell. Problems with that narrative. The CCTV cameras malfunctioned that night. Guards were supposedly asleep and then falsified the logs. Epstein has a broken hyoid bone in his neck, which is common in strangulation, not hanging. A pathologist, Dr. Michael Baden, called it more consistent with homicide. And Epstein reportedly had been informing guards that somebody was trying to kill him. So he was either silenced before he could talk, or he was extracted and relocated by intelligence, is the theory there. And then a year or something later comes Ghislaine's trial and cover-up. So, and then it's also very odd that this all coincides with this massive nuclear COVID story that sends everyone running into stores concerning themselves about toilet paper and all this fucking horse shit. And people are running around. There's a death count for COVID on the TV screen for like 3 years. And everyone just gets obfuscated and forgets about like, oh, there's this like elite case of like trafficking with billionaires going on, but let's go worry about hoarding toilet paper. It's like you don't think there's a tie there? I kind of do. I don't know. But so Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand chick, gets arrested in 2020 and later convicted of trafficking also. No clients named in court despite proof of the trafficking network. The media barely covers it, but they cover, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard bitching at each other 24 hours a day, and they want you to focus on. They want you worried about that. They want you worried about the fact that Amber Heard is doing all this stupid shit with Johnny Depp. They don't want you worrying about the ruling class running a freaking trafficking network. So the theory there is that Maxwell is thrown under the bus to ensure no further powerful names are exposed. Like she's the fall guy, basically. And then the involvement of the banks, the financial side. So you got Deutsche Bank, or however the hell it's pronounced. I could be totally wrong. I don't know. Paying $150 million in fines for dealing with this guy. JP Morgan Chase recently sued for enabling, allegedly, his crimes. Cayman Island and Swiss accounts. Epstein was moving money through those offshore accounts, likely laundering money or doing something for intelligence ops. So was his fortune a front? Like, was he never actually this filthy rich financier? It was just like a front for illicit. I really don't know. So the Epstein list. So like, despite massive investigations and massive promises from a million different people, we've never gotten like really much of anything on this, as is the case with everything always with this like intelligence level stuff. And so why hasn't it been released? The individuals involved are too powerful. They span politics, business, royalty, etc., intelligence. Or the FBI and U.S. intelligence used Epstein's blackmail material for leverage rather than exposing the crimes. Or judges keep the document seals, claiming national security problem. I could never tell you. I mean, I don't have the... This is the problem. Nobody has the facts on anything now, because it's proven now, like without a doubt, that the sources we all thought were like legit for most of our lives are completely fabricated, every last one of them, like controlled ops. So like, who do we believe here? Because the mainstream media is blatantly compromised. Like that's like its ethos. The alternative media has likely been compromised from the beginning. It's just been like slowly implemented strategically so that you're not aware until it's too late and they've accomplished everything mostly that they wanted and needed to accomplish. That's just kind of where my head's at about that. But so in January 23, some court documents get unsealed, revealing a partial list of people tied to Epstein. I think I mentioned this a bit, but we'll go a little further on the people here. Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister, frequently visited Epstein's residencies. Les Wexner, Epstein's financial backer, connected through Victoria's Secret. Leon Black, Apollo global management billionaire, paid Epstein $158 million. Jess Staley, ex-CEO of Barclays, resigned after his ties to Epstein were exposed. So who's still missing? The biggest names likely include Wall Street elites, Hollywood moguls, world leaders, politicians. Documents remain sealed despite legal efforts to make them public. And yes, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm sure if any of you listen this far, you're going to be like, oh, Trump has a picture with him, blah, blah, blah. Throw every theory you got at me. I'm open to listen to anything. I don't care. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm just talking, man. This is free speech. So like theories about his true role. Was he an intelligence agent? His main partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, a British media tycoon with strong Mossad connections. Epstein's ability to avoid consequences suggests he had protection from intelligence agencies. The blackmail operation, hidden cameras everywhere, and trying to compromise everybody with extreme power fits the profile of an intelligence-ran honey trap, compromising powerful people for control. So now thinking about him as a CIA or deep state asset. Some believe that Epstein operated freely despite being known to law enforcement for decades. Some believe U.S. intelligence allowed him to run the operations using his blackmail material as leverage. His 2008 sweetheart deal was overseen by Alexander Acosta, as I said, who later backed off. So Epstein was moving massive amounts of money through offshore accounts, yet no one knows how he made the fortune. He's working with all these humongous banks. I mean, what was going on here? Why were they laundering this money? Why was trafficking involved? And it starts making you ask questions about like how the world is actually run. And like why is this story hyper specifically total refusal to get answers about? Like and that's a trend now with every story that happens that is a little bit suspicious. There's just total obfuscation. It's all these stories. Even the Thomas Matthew Crooks thing, just total obfuscation. There's no, I know I'm just kind of bouncing around here, but there's nothing in the house supposedly. He never used a cell phone, never used the internet. It's like, yo, come on. Like, this is such a freaking psychological operation. Like, to accomplish something, I couldn't even tell you what. And there's so much of it happening at once, the human mind almost isn't even like capable of managing this level of trickery and puzzle like shit. So, and I know I'm being a little bit redundant here, but why is Jelaine silent? She's never named anyone. Like, she must have cut a secret deal. Like, that, it doesn't make any sense. And no one else has been arrested despite her being convicted of trafficking all these people to unnamed clients. And she's just the fall guy. She trafficked all these people to all these wealthy people, but none of them have to be accountable. And you're not allowed to talk about it. What the fuck is that? Fuck that. Break the barrier. Talk about this shit. Literally. The lawsuits against Epstein's financial backers. J.P. Morgan Chase is currently being sued by the U.S. Virgin Islands for enabling Epstein's crimes. Jess Staley, former J.P. Morgan exec, exchanged hundreds of emails with Epstein, including some with disturbing language about younger people. Why did big banks continue doing business with Epstein even after his first conviction? So, to wrap that up to some degree, the Epstein case is not even close to over. It's like actively playing out, and most of us have been just like suppressed into forgetting about it. He was not just a wealthy offender. He was part of an extremely deep, like depths that you can't even comprehend, global network involving intelligence, finance, and the elite power structures of this world. His connections to all these different intelligence agencies, Wall Street, and etc., suggest a far bigger op than what's publicly acknowledged. The full list of his clients remains sealed, and powerful figures are actively avoiding this situation and its dire consequences, potentially. Where does this lead? If more stuff surfaces, it'll expose world leaders, billionaires, Hollywood elites, ongoing lawsuits against JP Morgan, and Deutsche Bank, or Deutsche Bank, however the hell you say it, could reveal how Epstein moved money for his clients. Survivors like Virginia Jeffrey are still fighting legal battles. Will more powerful people be named that can make more of a statement and wake more people up? I have no idea. I think very possibly. So there's no way he's acting alone in any of this at all. There's probably hundreds of people, if not thousands of people involved in this. Like, his connection to the intelligence agencies and billionaires suggests he was a tool and asset for blackmail, money laundering, and trafficking. The real question is, if Epstein was one node in this system, how deep does the network go? And so one of the guys I naturally wanted to zero in on here that just came to my interest when deep diving on this is Jess Staley, the former CEO of Barclays and longtime J.P. Morgan Chase executive who had deep connections with Epstein. His relationship with Epstein has been heavily scrutinized, specifically because of a couple of emails that had weird text in them. So from 2015 to 2021, he was a top exec at J.P. Morgan Chase for over 30 years. He was the former CEO from 2015 to 2021 and top exec for over 30 years there. He had a close, decades-long relationship with Epstein, even after the 2008 conviction Epstein took on. So his role at JP Morgan was running private banking division from 1999 to 2013, managing the wealth of ultra-high net worth clients. Epstein was one of his clients, and so the suspicious emails here. So they exchanged hundreds of emails with each other, Staley and Epstein, between 2008 and 2015. Some of them suggest a deeper, potentially criminal relationship. Some of the key emails, 2010 to 2011. After visiting Epstein's private island, Stanley emails Epstein, quote, "That was fun. Say hi to Snow White," unquote. Epstein responds, quote, "Snow White can always come and visit," unquote. Staley replies, quote, "That would be great. When will you be back in the U.S., unquote. Who is Snow White? Like, are we really not talking about this shit? Are we really worrying about Amber Heard taking a shit in Johnny Depp's bed? Who is the Snow White that Jess Staley from J.P. Morgan Chase is emailing Jeffrey Epstein about for a year? Who's that? Nobody cares? We're just all going to go work for fucking McDonald's? Like, what's the fucking truth, guys? Are we really we really don't care about anything that's going on? We're just going to take it? Fuck that. So, another email. Staley to Epstein, 2011. Quote, "I deeply appreciate our friendship. I have few so profound," unquote. Epstein later arranges for Staley to visit the island. Like, this stuff gets me fired up. But so to me, it just looks like Staley was like Epstein's little patsy to launder the money, or they're all in on it together. Just, I can't prove any of this factually, but Staley visited the island multiple times, and he claims he never engaged in any wrongdoing and only maintained a professional relationship with Epstein, as of course he's going to say, because why the fuck would you say otherwise if you're potentially implicated in severe crime? So that's a worthless statement. I mentioned how in 2023, J.P. Morgan sued by the U.S. Virgin Islands for knowingly facilitating Epstein human trafficking ring. The key allegations there, they allowed him to bank with them for years, even after his conviction in 2008. Jess Staley personally vouched for him, keeping him as a client on J.P. Morgan. Bank execs ignored warnings from compliance officers about Epstein's suspicious transactions. Epstein moved millions through J.P. Morgan, potentially funding his trafficking operation. Staley was specifically named in the lawsuits as Epstein's, quote, key enabler within J.P. Morgan, allowing Epstein's suspicious transactions to continue even after his crimes were public, potentially benefiting from Epstein's operation personally. So then it keeps going. In 2021, British regulators launched an investigation into Staley's relationship with Epstein. Barclays forces him to step down as CEO despite Staley denying wrongdoing. Regulators find out he was dishonest about the extent of his Epstein ties. So obviously if he's lying from the jump about his ties to Epstein, he's lying about fucking everything. So, and that's just kind of where my head is at with a lot of these people these days, unfortunately. But it's like, where is he now? Jess Staley is still facing lawsuits related to the Epstein financial network. J.P. Morgan tried to blame him for the bank's Epstein dealings, calling him the, quote, fall guy. His future in finance is cooked, but he hasn't faced any charges yet criminally. So was he Epstein's banker? Did he participate in the crimes? Was he blackmailed? And why hasn't he been criminally charged with anything? If he was this connected and this involved in making all this shit happen and allowing it to happen. And all right, I'm just going to touch on a few more of his connections and the weird things with the associations. I know I might be repeating some of these people, but I'm trying not to be too redundant here. I'm get information across. So Les Wexner, billionaire founder of L Brands, claims he was unaware of Epstein's criminal activities and that he severed ties with Epstein's 2007. However, the extent of Epstein's control over Wexner's finances and the nature of their relationship raised questions. Wexner described Epstein as a smart, savvy businessman, but also expresses regret for associating with him. So it's like, yeah, you're totally full of shit because you're playing both sides. Leon Black, co-founder of Apollo Global Management, was a major client of Epstein's financial services. He stated he was unaware of Epstein's criminal behavior and that he cut ties with Epstein in 2018. However, the extent of their financial relationship and the timing of their association raises eyebrows. Black has since apologized for his involvement with Epstein and commissioned an independent review of his ties to him. So everything's all good when you're making $1 trillion with the guy, but as soon as shit hits the fan, fuck him. It's like, you're full of shit too. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, meets with Epstein on several occasions after Epstein's conviction. Gates has stated that these meetings were related to philanthropy, particular efforts to raise funds for global health initiatives. He's a fucking fraud. He's full of shit. Gates acknowledges that meeting with Epstein was a mistake and that he did so in hope of securing funding for charitable causes. However, the nature of their meetings and the fact that they occurred after Epstein's conviction lead to natural speculation of the real identity of their relationship. This is where it gets fucking weird as hell. Stephen Hawking, the renowned physicist Stephen Hawking, attended a conference hosted by Epstein in the Virgin Islands in 2006. Epstein was known for hosting gatherings of scientists, academics, and other influential figures. So that's just why is Stephen Hawking at an event with Jeffrey Epstein in the 2000s? Obviously, Epstein is just getting himself close to anyone possible to get as much on them as possible and blackmail the living fuck out of them or something or other. Or maintain or it's all an operation to maintain control over these people that have gotten above the system or something. I don't know. Then there's the Prince Andrew Association, and he was photographed with Epstein multiple occasions, including in New York, where Epstein also in that New York townhouse or mansion or whatever, I believe, had a painting of Bill Clinton in like high heels and a blue blouse, which we'll get to in a bit. But so Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's accusers, alleged that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew, which he denies, but I believe paid himself out of. And then he attempted to explain his relationship in 2019 in a BBC interview. And then, like, during the interview, made several controversial statements, including claiming that he could not sweat a photo of him because it could be doctored or something, the photo of him and that girl. It's like, you're full of shit about everything you've ever said, too. So, like, and it just keeps going. And so I'm not going to name every person, but the infamous portrait of Bill Clinton that Jeffrey Epstein owned has been a subject of intense speculation and intrigue, myself included. The painting, which you can find online, see a picture of yourself, depicts Bill Clinton in a blue dress in red heels, posing in the Oval Office. And this has just raised questions about the nature of Epstein's relationship to U.S., intelligence and et cetera for all this time. Like, why does this guy running this like pedo op who is also like networked with all these politicians and et cetera, why does he have a painting of Bill Clinton cross-dressing, like a massive painting? Like it's like a fucking Mona Lisa of Bill Clinton cross-dressing. And this guy's a billionaire, and this is what he's spending his money on, is getting artwork of Bill Clinton cross-dressing commissioned. What is that? Like, like literally, what the fuck is that? That's such a blatant, like, blackmail, like, thing. Like, in like a power move thing. That's such a psychological like thing to me. The painting was created by Patrina Ryan Cleed, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, a New York-based artist in the 1990s, was reportedly part of a series of satirical works depicting political figures in unusual or humorous scenarios. Epstein acquired the painting at some point and it was displayed in his New York townhouse. So one of the more common theories is that Epstein was using that painting as a form of psychological leverage or blackmail against Clinton or the Clintons. The unusual and potentially embarrassing nature of the portrait could have been a way for Epstein to subtly remind Clinton of their connection or to exert influence over him. Epstein was known to cultivate relationships with powerful individuals, and there have been allegations that he collected compromising information on them to ensure their loyalty or silence. The painting could have been part of this strategy. There's also the theory that it could be a symbol of their relationship. People have suggested the painting symbolized the nature of Epstein's relationship with Clinton. It's like a mocking tone of the artwork reflecting Epstein's view of Clinton as someone willing to engage in unconventional or risky behavior for his own benefit, most likely, or something like that. I don't know. And Clinton and Epstein were known to have traveled together on multiple occasions on the Lolita Express, despite Bill Clinton denying that. So, and I mean, of course, it always could just be satire or provocation, like just piss people off and just be a joke, but definitely with the way this guy was living life, I would say just about every single thing he did was a psychological move. So the true reason he owns that painting will always be a mystery. And whether it was a form of blackmail, a symbol of their relationship, mocking Bill Clinton, just simply a provocative, satirical piece of art, we'll never know. But it's become a focal point of the speculation about Epstein's methods, motivations, behaviors, psychology, etc. So now I wanted to move into something totally different kind of, but it's a little bit of a deep dive as well. Well, I guess it's not totally different. It's like kind of talking about intelligence to a degree. I want to talk about Oracle, TikTok, and Larry Ellison and the connection of the CIA to all that. So Larry Ellison is the co-founder and former CEO of Oracle Corporations, which I believe before it became a public corporation, it was actually a government project with the same name. But you can correct me on that if I'm incorrect. I don't have that information right in front of my face, but I do believe that's the case. Oracle Corporation has long been a prominent figure in the tech industry. They're a major player in enterprise software and cloud computing and has various connections to government agencies, including CIA. Additionally, Oracle's involvement with TikTok and its algorithms has drawn significant attention, particularly in the context of U.S.-China relations, as well as the Israel-Palestine thing, censorship-related, and data security concerns. So Oracle's government contracts. They have a long history of providing software and database solutions to U.S. government agencies, including the CIA, Department of Defense, and other intelligence orgs. The CIA was one of Oracle's earliest clients. In the 1980s, the agency used Oracle's database technology to manage and analyze large volumes of data, which helped establish Oracle as a trusted provider for government and intelligence work. The In-Q-Tel connection. In-Q-Tel is the CIA's venture capital arm, established in 1999 to invest in cutting-edge technologies that could support U.S. intelligence operations. Oracle has collaborated with In-Q-Tel on various projects, particularly in areas like data analytics, cybersecurity, and cloud computing. These collaborations have further solidified Oracle's ties to the intelligence community. So Larry Ellison and his personal ties. He's been vocal about his support for U.S. national security and has cultivated relationships with government officials. He's hosted fundraisers for political figures, including Trump and so on, and been an advocate for strong U.S. leadership in technology and defense. His close ties to the Trump admin in particular raised questions about Oracle's roles in government contracts and policy decisions during that time. So Larry Ellison, to get into like a little deeper about this, has kind of been like almost lobbying for a long time now, for like probably 10 years, to push for this like corporate like censorship, overlook, and control of like these social platforms kind of. And this really was like the Wild West like 10, 15 years ago, like with YouTube and Instagram and stuff. And I don't think these people and powers understood, they definitely didn't understand the power and leverage that these platforms can provide individuals. And that's why these platforms have become just obfuscated information hellholes of nothingness and brain rot. And that's all by design too, because they don't want you going on there and figuring shit out. They want you on there watching Ice Spice twerking. That's the whole game, like literally. And I'm at the point where I believe the celebrities are being psy-oped. I believe like the influencers are being psy-oped. I believe that even, I'm going on a tangent now, but I believe even like the LA fires and like people like being on the phone so many hours a day is like almost like a technique by the ruling class to be like, oh yeah, like who cares about your fucking house? Like just look at TikTok some more. Look at Instagram another 12 hours a day. Like the house doesn't even matter. Like that's literally what I think like they're like doing personally. But so Oracle, TikTok, and algorithmic control. TikTok's U.S. operations and national security concerns. TikTok is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance and has faced scrutiny in the U.S. for years now over concerns that user data could be accessed by the Chinese government, posing a national security risk. So I'm going to go on another tangent. There's also the angle, you can look at this, where what if TikTok is totally uncensored to some degree, and the U.S. government is stepping in because they want it to be more controlled. There's a million ways you can look at this stuff in this information and intelligence war. And that's really what it is. Don't go on these apps and think like, oh, Susie posted her dog. Oh, John had a steak tonight. It's so cool out here. Let's go like have a ball. It's like, this is all an operation to study human behavior, trigger you in certain ways to get you to buy things or not buy things, or support someone or not support someone, to further some policy or agenda. And you have to constantly, like every millisecond, remind yourself of that, because they have every tactic employed on Earth to suck you right back in the next millisecond and make you forget about what's going on. So in 2020, Trump admin threatens to ban TikTok unless it's sold to a U.S.-based company, and that whole scheme is basically still playing out. Oracle emerged as a key player then and is not specifically emerged vocally as a key player right now. Like Microsoft seems to be trying to publicly, verbally front run that. But I personally think Oracle might be the company that in the U.S. that ends up buying a majority stake of TikTok, or whatever you want to call that. So in September 2020, Oracle and Walmart were announced as part of a deal to acquire a stake in TikTok's U.S. operations. While the deal was never finalized due to legal and regulatory challenges, Oracle was designated as TikTok's trusted technology provider. As part of this arrangement, Oracle was tasked with hosting TikTok's U.S. user data on its cloud infrastructure, ensuring that the data remained within the U.S. and was not accessible to ByteDance or the Chinese government. And so one of the most contentious issues in the TikTok debate has been the control of its algorithm, which drives the app's highly personalized content recommendations. Critics argue that the algorithm could be manipulated by ByteDance or the Chinese government to influence public opinion or spread propaganda. Under the proposed deal, Oracle would have had oversight of TikTok's algorithms to ensure they were not being used for malicious purposes. However, the specifics of how much control Oracle would have had remained unclear as the deal was never fully implemented. So I'm not going to go all the way too far with that, but basically Larry Ellison and Oracle have deep connections to the U.S. government and intelligence community, particularly with their work with the CIA and other agencies. Oracle's role in the TikTok saga reflects its strategic importance in addressing national security concerns related to data and algorithms. While the TikTok deal remains unresolved, Oracle's involvement underscores the complex interplay between technology, politics, and global power dynamics. So I personally believe, like I said, Ellison and Oracle will end up purchasing TikTok despite what the mainstream media is telling you right now, how Microsoft's going to do it. And Larry Ellison also recently, when they did the freaking Stargate announcement, I wasn't even planning on touching on this. So they do the Stargate announcement with Trump talking about how they're going to invest $500 billion. Ellison, Sam Altman, and some other guy, I can't remember, into AI and etc. Ellison is on TV talking about how they're going to have personalized AI vaccines. First of all, what the fuck does that even mean? Second of all, no thanks. Third of all, why? And fourth of all, I'm about to invest in this dude's company because he's got some shit going on. But But like I said, I think they're going to end up purchasing TikTok, and I think that the entire DeepSeek AI app situation could all be an orchestrated global psy-op to concentrate power, control, wealth, and etc. to hyper-specific groups. I personally believe the CIA has infiltrated and strong-armed all of the social apps now, every single one, including X, but that's also a weird one for me too, because it's branded based off free speech, but it seems to have a very high level of intense psy-op going on with every topic in every genre of life, which is also unfortunate to be aware of. But and yeah, like I said, I believe that the intelligence agencies and beyond and governments have strong-armed all the social apps now globally. So we're talking about every government, every country is infiltrating these apps to try to pursue agendas on us, using us as the point of attack. And to the extent that product name drops, users that are spies are pretending to be regular citizens all over every app, purposeful, complete obfuscation of real information is everywhere so that nobody has any clue what's really going on with anything, so nobody can make a sound decision on anything they're doing. Classic divide and conquer techniques taking place psychologically everywhere all the time. It seems to me people have been completely neutered mentally for years and years now, and that they've entirely abandoned the possibility that there's a mental and psychological aspect to the game of life. Oh, and I was also going to say, ChatGPT and both DeepSeek seem to be getting serious DDoS attacks and going down for hours on end on almost a daily basis now. And it's really weird because I noticed today they're going down at the exact same time and coming back online at the exact same moment. This shit is not a coincidence. There's some global orchestration going on in this AI war. I'm telling you. So the next thing I was going to talk about was how kind of weird it is that the Jay-Z, this whole case came out about Jay-Z having an allegation placed on him involving some teenager and teenage girl, and then the Diddy and Jay-Z case just get vanish almost. There's just LA fires every day for a month now, and these stories just get buried, and it's very odd to me. So the allegations surrounding Jay-Z have to do with this whole Tony Busby thing, where he's been accused of so anyway, he's actually been linked to Epstein through social circles. But there's even a 2019 photo surface showing Jay-Z and Epstein together at a party in Paris in the early 2000s. Jay-Z probably about to come after my ass now. But the current accusations and developments in that case: Tony Busby in his involvement. He's a high-profile attorney known for representing victims of abuse in high-stakes civil cases. He's been involved in several cases related to Epstein, including representing some of Epstein's accusers. I actually didn't even know that. He's been vocal about holding powerful individuals accountable of their connections to Epstein. In 2021, he filed the lawsuit against Prince Andrew and etc. So Jay-Z was accused basically of having a relationship with like a 13-year-old or something, and basically just put out like a broad statement saying he didn't do it, and then like vanished into secrecy and hiding in the freaking wherever he's at. And like Beyonce's about to go to the UK and do some shows. No one's talking about this. They're just letting LA burn down and sorry, can't talk about it, too busy. It's like, you guys are fucking weird, man. Like, what is up with this? Talk about it. And yeah, just to give the factual or alleged, case that's been presented. December 2024, a woman accused Jay-Z and Diddy of assaulting her when she was 13 at an awards show after party. So there's that. And yeah, I mean, there's so many rabbit holes to go down with Diddy in his cases in his life. I think I already did like a deep dive on that in one of the episodes, but there's the conspiracies about his connection with the Pac passing. Like Danity Kane, if you guys remember them, I think, weren't they from like Making the Band or some shit? Like, yo, one of the members, or D Woods from Danity Kane, I don't know her exact first name, she goes by D Woods, accuses Diddy one day ago of treating her like a piece of meat during troubling interactions. Oh man, it's never ever gonna end for this guy. I don't see how he could possibly. He's Weinstein 2.0, bro, at this point. Like, it's freaking crazy. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much longer. It's been a really long podcast, and I was probably a little bit redundant with certain moments. But I hope you enjoyed listening. If you listened to this far, I appreciate it if you listen this far. If you could leave a nice review or critique on the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you watch and listen, I would really appreciate that. You can share the podcast, help me out, leave a rating on Apple Podcast app, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Follow me on Instagram at k.jachimowicz, same handle on X. And shatter those illusions, guys. Shatter those media illusions. Shatter those social media illusions. Own your time to yourself and your priorities. Don't let this system of time rob you and sit there scrolling for 20 years of your life looking at propaganda. Take control of every second, every millisecond of your life and own it. Make it all yours, because it is all yours, and they're trying to trick you that it's not. Shatter those illusions. Have a great day. And I'm going to make another podcast soon so we can have some more fun and some laughs with this. Take care, y'all.